Okay, today we're going to complete the vise assembly. So let's go ahead and start a new file. This is a English part, so a standard inch assembly. And the first thing that we want to place is our base feature. Excuse me. Again, visually, I always like to place everything as an isometric. I'm going to right click and place this as a grounded piece, which again removes all the degrees of freedom. So let's go ahead and choose and put in our degrees of freedom. And I see I have some of my sketch still visible, so I can come over here and let's hit OK. So we're out of there and take the visibility off. Oh, looks like I have a axes on also. So again, however you save your drawing as a part file, it's going to come into your assembly the same way. So that's a good way to see this. And notice that I went ahead and already changed all of my material as well. So you'll notice as we bring in parts, they're going to be different materials. The next thing I want to bring in is our jaw. And the jaw is going to be the feature that when I place it in here, let's go ahead and place here. Right click, OK, is going to be set here, and it's what's going to close when the handle's moved. So now as I'm looking at this, let's take a closer look here from the front view. And there is my edge that should actually line up down here. And again, you can't see it exactly, but I'm noticing it is not aligning with this piece here. Okay, so that tells me that probably this jaw is not quite correct. So let's go ahead and make an adjustment here. So see how those are not going to line up. And if I have them aligned, it's not going to align with the bottom here. And here, let me show you real quick. So if I constrain, well, I shouldn't have put it that close. Let's move it out a little bit. If I constrain this surface to this surface, and then my axes to my axes. If I look at it straight on, see how I have this gap here? It does not set on this bottom feature. So that's telling me something's not quite right with one of these parts. And my guess is it's going to be the jaw or the base feature. Maybe this is too high, but I'm going to start off with the jaw. Let's go ahead and hit undo. There we go. So again, now we have our part just back the way it was. Now, I do want to let you know, we will be approaching putting this assembly together in another video down the road, or down the assignments here during a different week. This is actually just to put this feature together, not making this feature move and the jaw moves. So just keep that in mind. This is just to create this assembly of these parts. All right, so let's go ahead and go to open. And I want to open that jaw. Okay, so I'm looking at this. Let me look at my first sketch. And, oh, first of all, I don't even have it fully constrained. So it tells me something's not quite right. And also right here, it's 4 dimensions needed. So I'm thinking, maybe one of these dimensions isn't correct. I know the height of this was where we were having the issue. So I'm going to start with my measurement here. And that's actually supposed to be 1. And notice there's not a dimension there, and I can easily move it. The other parts might be aligning to my 0. Now, this doesn't affect my drawing at all. So don't feel like it's like, oh, it's going to affect the part by moving it to another location on here. But the size here is going to make a difference. So I'm just going to do a quick fully constrain, and I'm not going to worry about what it created. So we'll just hit done here and finish my sketch. So see how it made that adjustment? That's now higher. That's all we really care about. We don't care right now that it moved along the origin or anything like that. But let's go back to our assembly. And now let's do the exact same thing. Let me go ahead and choose my feature here. Choose my feature here. And then we also aligned our circular features. And now let's look at it from the side. So see now how we don't have that gapping. So that was the part. So I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that when I make adjustments to other parts, I can make adjustments here as well. So if I hit apply and I hit cancel, I don't have my degrees of freedom on. Let's get those degrees of freedom. And right here, I'm looking at, I might have an issue because I can still rotate this piece. So I know I need to create another constraint, and I may want to just constrain this surface and this surface here. And again, we're doing this for assembly purposes only, not to be able to move this. Because see now, this jaw doesn't move, but in reality, it will move. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good so far. So let's see what our next piece might be. So we're going to place our part, and I see a handle knob and a handle rod, and I have a screw. So it looks to me like maybe this here needs to be my next part. So let's go ahead and put open. And I'm just going to select right here, right click, select OK. See, my material's already created. And this piece is going to be inserted into this location here, is what I'm looking at. So let's go ahead and start that constraining process. And this could be an actual insert because this is going to be inserted to this feature here, although it looks a little bit bigger. So I may have the wrong part. Let's just leave that part there. Let's bring all of our parts in. Sometimes you just need to do that. All right, so my handle knob. I assume I have one handle knob right now, but I may have two. My handle rod. I do have two, so we'll make sure we duplicate that. And then my key, which I know I also have two. So we're going to put two keys here. All right, as I look at this, I'm thinking this piece is going to be inserted into this hole. This end piece is going to be on both ends of here. So let's go ahead and place the second one. I can right click and I can actually duplicate, or I can just come over here to place and add a second handle knob. Let's get both of those in here. So it does look to me like this is going to be inserted in here. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so let's do our constraint. And again, I might start with this feature here. Actually, let's do this. Rotate it so you can see it. So we're going to place it on this feature so that we have this nice and aligned here. But again, this doesn't do us a lot of good because it needs to actually be aligned in here. And you might say, well, let's do this instead. Here, let's cancel this. Can I start with the axes of these two items? Well, you can, but again, it's going to line this axis. It doesn't really know. So maybe a better option would be to do an insert. So let's do our insert, and we're going to select this item here, this circular piece, and our circular piece here. And we're going to do them the opposite way. So now that is nice and flush. Now I'm looking at that, and that's an interference. See how that we have, here, let's hit apply. See how you can see that there's both materials here. So I'm thinking that possibly one of those holes is the wrong size. So you would need to go in and make that adjustment to this piece. So either this hole is too small or this shaft is too large. But for now, I'm not going to worry about it, okay? So the only thing I can still do is I can rotate. See, I can rotate that part. I can't move the part in and out because I have it placed as an insert based off of this feature here. So again, we're going to go in and take a look at that here in a little bit, but not right this second. So now I want to go ahead and say, all right, I need to insert this piece into this shaft here. So I can go ahead and grab my insert, and I'm going to take my shaft. Now again, see how it's selecting this hole. And then I'm going to go ahead and select this feature here. And as we're trying to select this feature, I'm having an issue aligning it with this circular feature because it wants to align it with this feature here. So I have to look at and say, okay, so how can I align and put in this shaft into this hole when it doesn't want to select it? So let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. So again, I want to go ahead and do my constraint, and I'm rotating this. And again, visually for me, when I do this, if I have them kind of aligned the way I would insert it, it helps me as well. I'm going to select my part here. And again, we want to make sure we're selecting our piece here. And then I'm going to select this arrow. So I'm actually not going to do an insert. I'm actually going to do a mate here. Okay. Now, when I do this mate, I mated these two surfaces, these two circular features, and I can also do an offset. So if I want this handle to be in further, I can put in, I'm not sure the size. So we're going to start with like 2, oh, wrong way, because we inserted based off of that feature. So let's try to do a different mate here, or a different constraint. So if I try to do an insert versus a constraint, the hard part is to see it doesn't want to select this as a hole through here. So then I know I have to do something different because I cannot get this in here based off of utilizing that circular feature because it's on that curved portion. So it's not taking a look at it and saying you can insert it in here. So we're going to go back to this mate option. So I can select here and I can select my hole here to be able to get these to mate here. I'm going to go ahead and hit, well, you can do aligned, so you can change the different locations there. So you'll see that this is now inserted, and notice I can still move it from side to side, but now the cool thing is I can rotate this. And when I rotate it, because I haven't taken away all my degrees of freedom, see how it's also rotating this handle here. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get our knobs on. So we're going to select our constraints, and we have to decide how we want these to go in. So we're going to start with doing a you can do, well, we can do a couple different ways. So we're going to do a mate first. So see how that is mated to the end here. But if I rotate it, it goes in, doesn't go in far enough. So I can actually select the other option here, not the align. So now it is stuck right there. So I can hit apply. So this handle can still move right to left. But if I select my face here, let's turn around. I can make my flush and my flush. Oops, I don't think I grabbed it. Let's pull that out a little. There we go. There we go. Make these two flush and hit apply. So one of the things I want to show you is make sure that you take your time to manipulate these different parts and kind of mess around with how you want them to rotate and be constrained. Okay. So let's go ahead and add our second one here. And we're going to do our constrained, and I'm going to do this based off my axes here. And then I'm going to come in and do a flush constraint. And again, if I'm having trouble grabbing this, I can actually just, there we go, pull those off. So now I have this nice notch here. Now I do want you to see how this is still sliding all the way through. We'll actually do some additional constraints with that in a later video, but again, we're just assembling these items. So the last pieces are these little keys that go right in this piece here. So we should probably put those in first. But I can always suppress. So we're going to come in here. We're going to right click and suppress. And basically it's taking that part away for the time being. I'm suppressing it so that I can get these keys right in here. So we're going to constrain, and I'm going to select, let's go in here and select this surface here. And we're going to constrain it to this surface here. So that, again, if I hit apply, that's, constraining it. It looks like I from the side. That's constraining it left to right, or oops, maybe I didn't grab the right constraint there. I'm not entirely sure what I constrained. Oh, there it is. So it's set in that locate in this piece here, not, so it's going to stay constrained to that. So it's going to be able to go up and down. If I just look at my degrees of freedom, I can see that. So I can go ahead and constrain, and I can select these two surfaces as well, make them flush. And then I can select, let's select the top surface here. And let's rotate this. And select my bottom surface here. And I have one too many constraints in. So let's see what we're doing here. There we go. Let's constrain it to this piece. And I could have just selected the wrong one. So sometimes it's difficult to see. Let's rotate, zoom in. There we go. I must have selected the wrong item. So now this is actually constrained completely in here. So if I look at it from the side, cannot move. If we wanted it centered in here, not entirely sure why I'm seeing this as the raw is not the same size. But again, I could go in and make that edit, and maybe we will, to our pins, our keys. So let's go ahead and do the same thing on this side. And again, it doesn't necessarily matter the order in which you do in this case, but you are going to have to manipulate your part to be able to get everything in at least the right location. We'll hit apply to add another constraint. Sometimes again, I cancel out just so I can move that along. There we go. So I'm going to constrain. We're going to do the same constraint here. Make it flush. And then last and certainly not least, let's make sure we're grabbing the right planes here. If you don't, it's going to give you an error. So let's hit cancel. Let's move that out of the way, make sure we're getting the right surfaces. So we want to do the bottom surface here. Surface there. There we go. Now we got it right. So now we have both those pins in there as well. And I can come back here. I can right click and then unsuppress my feature. And there we go. So now this feature is still in here. And this is still grounded for us as well. We don't have to add any of that. So now we have this fully assembled. And like I said, things that I would go back and check. Number one is the key. Is it too long? Is it not long enough? Maybe check the jaw and see if it's too long. If that key is supposed to be that full length. Another thing I would be checking is I see that this cylinder here is actually in this part here, so it collides there. And is it supposed to be that way? It could be a pressed fit, but that would be a pretty major pressed fit there because it's so much larger. But those would be items I would check. And that's again the nice thing with Inventor is I can go in and check those parts and make adjustments. So I already showed you how to go in and make one adjustment to the jaw here. You can actually come into our actual part and I can right click and I can select edit. And now I can actually go in and edit this piece. So notice that these are now kind of a shadow figure, and I can go in and make adjustments as needed. And again, I would be checking the size of that part. When I hit return, it brings me back here. So like, for example, if I'm going to edit this key, there's the key here. So I'm going to go to my original extrusion. I'm going to edit my sketch, and my key is the correct size. Okay, so finish the sketch. Let's look at the extrusion, edit my feature. So I had it as 1.75. I'm not sure what the size of this piece is. Let's go ahead and put in 2.5. See if that makes a difference. So it's going to create that larger piece. When I hit return, it's still going to come back here. But notice even though it extruded out towards me, it actually is going to make the adjustment inside here. So let's suppress this base again. And then we can look at this part. So what I was saying is I increased the size to 2 and notice it still stayed flush here. So I can come in here and do a quick measure and see maybe what that distance is. So 0.351. So again, that key may not be required to be the full length, but if it does, I could come in here and make that adjustment. All right, let's go back to our assembly view. And let's unsuppress this part here. If you do have parts suppressed, it's going to be suppressed in your other item as well. And again, we can still rotate this and see how that does go through. But again, this is an assembly for us. We're actually going to work later in the semester on fully constraining this part and driving so that when we turn this, the screw will actually go in and the jaw will actually close. But for our assembly, we can go ahead and leave it as it is. And we are going to go ahead and let's do a quick save. And we're just going to call this wheel assembly because we already have saved it once. Again, we want all of our parts to be part of this, so always select yes to all. And that makes adjustments across the board between all of your parts. So at this point, if I want to go ahead and create an assembly IDW, I can go ahead and come in here, select assembly. And I'm going to just place my base view. We want it as an isometric. And let's leave it as a 1-to-1. And I'm going to select OK. And then I might say, I need my sheet a little bit smaller. I don't need such a large sheet. A D size sheet is 22 by 34. I want to place this on a B size, which is your 11 by 17, something that you can send to the copier. But in doing that, you might have to come in and say, oh, wait a minute, now this view is too big. I can edit my view and change that to a 1-to-2. And now I have a nice part there. Okay, nice assembly. I can come in at this point and add my parts list. And we're not going to go through all the different steps of this, but we'll go ahead and select our view, which is the only one we have on here. And we want parts only. And now we have our parts list here. And I am going to make a quick edit. So we're going to edit our parts list. And the big thing for me is let's get that description off there. I don't need to have the description, but in this case, I did go through and add materials. So let's put our material on here. And I'm going to move my quantity down to the last. And then I'm like, I don't want to have this parts list title. So again, how do we do that? We can edit our parts list and we can go over here and change how our parts list is going to look. So I don't want the title. I actually want my 1 to start at the bottom and move up. And therefore I want my heading at the bottom also. And I've made all those changes. You can hit apply to take a look at it first. And then I can go ahead and make adjustments because I don't want my materials to be on 2 different lines. So that you'll see that we have 2 keys. We have 2 knobs, which are on either end here. And I'm going to go ahead and move this so it's down and over, so it's nice and aligned with my part here. And then I'm just going to be adding my balloons. So here's my base. Here's my jaw. Here is my, handle. Here's my, there we go, my knob. And I'm missing one thing, which would be my key, which you can't see in here. You could come in and make a note if you wanted to, because this is an item that you would not be able to see. And you can't really select it. See how it's not really letting me select. But again, you could do, you could come in here and place another view that shows the suppressed view of your item here. But again, you don't necessarily have to have that key. You could just put a note in as well. Then you would go ahead and update your title block. And that's how you create your vise assembly.